Well, guys, it is 3 a.m. I'm just getting back from a movie. So, of course, I'm sitting at my computer doing a recording instead of, getting sleep. But alas, you get my initial impressions on a new film. That film being Captain America, The First Adventure. And I knew I was going to like this movie before it started playing. And it wasn't because of trailers or because who was cast or who was directing or any of that stuff, or just because of source material. No, it's because in the 4 hours preceding me going to see this film, I was watching the Sci-Fi Channel's marathon of all the previous poorly done Captain America attempts. Slash, well, I guess they actually did show on TV, so I guess they were successful. But yeah, after seeing those, literally this movie could not do worse. Especially in the '89 one. Ooh, that was probably was the worst of them all. Even though the Red Brown one barely did anything and mostly whined. Actually, the '89 guy whined too. But regardless, yeah. So I was all prepped and Captain America ready to go. But enough about those films. You want to know what I know about or what I think about this film, and I have to say, I liked it. I really like this film. Highly recommend it. Go out and see it. If you're sitting on the fence, go out and see it. It's got a few flaws. Every film has a few flaws. I'll get into them in a little bit. But go see the film. It's a great film. It's got plenty of action. I like the pacing. I like the characterization. I like pretty much everything about it. I like the themes of the movie. I like the visual style of the movie. Awesome. Go see it. That's it. No. We'll get into more. As all of you probably know, I can go on in my reviews. Um, First up the bat, I know people are going to be wondering what was better, Thor or Captain America, since they both premiered in the summer. Both had an equal shot. They were paced out far enough from each other. But which one of these dominates? Which one would I prefer? Which one do most people prefer? I'm going to go in this case with Captain America. That's my initial impression. Because, well, I like the themes. I like World War II stuff. I like mad Nazi science, which is the best of the mad sciences, because it has Nazis in it. And Nazis make everything that much more crazy. Yes, it does have Nazi super science in it. So, it's for that stuff. It does kind of inch out above Thor, but you know what? It just barely inches out. So, if enough complaining about which one's better, they're both technically sidequels. They have a lot of interconnectivity. You can consider them sequels technically, or I guess this would be actually a prequel, or parts of it would be. But the film itself, how should I get into? Well, let's go. Joe Johnston, I was a little worried with him as a director until I remembered his previous stuff. I mainly remembered him from Jurassic Park 3 until I looked at his filmography and remembered all the good stuff he did. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, for instance, classic. October Sky, which is a really good film if you've never seen it. And what else did he do? The Rocketeer, which was another great. And in character, you can kind of see elements of the Rocketeer in this movie, which is kind of cool. Actually, when I get on DVD, I'm really going to look in the background of some of this stuff because I can almost guarantee there's got to be Rocketeer things somewhere in the background of this film. So it's if you're worried, if you're thinking this is Joe Johnston from Jurassic Park 3, it's not. It is more. I mean, I think he learned his lesson a bit with the CGI and the fast pacing stuff, and it's good to see that. I can easily forgive a director if they made a bad film, but it looks like they learned from it, and this is a clear case of a director who got a big budget action film previously, made all the mistakes, he was too heavy on the CGI, didn't allow space for the actual plot to develop. I mean, partially that was a horrible script he was working with, but here he seemed to have redeemed himself. He restricted himself on the CG to an extent. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in here you have to do with CG, but he did there was a lot of stuff I could easily see a lot of other directors, Mark Summers, would have completely CG'd. but they did in live action, so I give them props for that. Uh, should I? I'm putting it off, but I want to talk about Hugo Weaving and the Red Skull. Uh, I like the way they introduced his character. He pulls up in the most bitchinest boss car you can imagine. This thing, I want this car. He drives in. Well, before that, he has a giant monstrous tank. I mean, this thing looks like it's out of Warhammer 40,000. Like, really, give Warhammer 40,000 its tank back. Hydra. They need it. And all they use this monstrous tank, which is probably about twice the size of this church, is to knock down the front door, which compared to this tank is a tiny. It's like using a toothpick at the beginning of the film. And then Johann Schmidt, aka the Red Skull, pulls up in the bitchin' car, comes in and tries to do like a little. I think they were kind of going for Inglorious Bastards, if you remember the beginning scene from that. They were going for kind of it. It didn't quite work, but that's because, that guy was awesome. But they discover one of the ancient relics of Odin, the Cosmic Cube, I believe it is known, and he basically winds up using that throughout the rest of the film to develop all his crazy, super mad Nazi science tech. As for how they did Hydra, well, actually, before that, I want to go back to Johann Schmidt. They do a good job of waiting to reveal him and doing little hints, like throughout the film, or at least before you see him in the full Red Skull glory, you can see on the sides of his neck these like little lines and flap things, and at first I think most people probably think they're a scar, but they're really the mask that's laid over. And then later on, he is unmasked, but he's not in shadow, but in silhouette as somebody's painting him, and you can see the outline of the skull and the fact that the other guys are kind of staring at him, but you never see him at that point as the skull. And they have one of the other Nazis refer to him as the Red Skull. So let's say about the halfway mark is when he finally takes the mask off and reveals himself for what happened to him. And when you do see that, some of the CGI on his face is not the best. I felt it probably could have been better. It wasn't that bad. I really wasn't distracted at all. If other people are saying that it was really distracting, they're nitpicking. It wasn't that. They were looking for something to have a problem. Yeah, it could have been a little better, but it wasn't movie breaking. Now, as for Hydra itself, I actually, in the first scene, I liked the Hydra uniforms a lot better. Mainly because they basically just took Nazi uniforms, had them a little bit a dark green with like the little red trimmings, and they looked pretty cool. And I liked those a lot better than what we see later in the film, which is more in line of what you see in the comics, especially the face part. They really kind of nailed that down, that kind of look of Hydra. Although I'm not sure if their uniforms are black later in the film or just dark green that looks black. But regardless, they were pretty good. I know at first one of the big complaints I had is they looked a little too high tech. In the actual movie, they look high tech, but not as bad as I thought they were going to be. And they do kind of fit. You kind of have an explanation at least of why they have the super packs, his laser weapons and stuff. And it's because, well, he gets the power of Odin, basically. They do a lot of good interconnect. Actually, I want to backtrack a bit. I completely forgot. Well, we can get to that later. I do like the interconnectivity. I want to talk about the interconnectivity between the films. After Steve Rogers, after the whole incident where they... Spoiler alert, yes, there's spoilers, as always. The doctor that turns Steve into Captain America, they take his blood, because the assassin wipes out all the remaining vials. I don't know why they just don't have the chemical formula written down somewhere. You figure they would have had that as a backup plan, to be able to resensitize it. I don't know. But they take blood, and you can clearly tell like the vials are the blood vials that they're gonna be that you see in the Incredible Hulk. They have Howard Stark plays a fairly decent. He's not all over the place. He's not a main character. He's a decent side character in this though, and he's kind of not quite up to Tony. Like the first time you see him, he tries to introduce a flying car, which is kind of a joke about how we're always promised a flying car, and lo and behold, this thing doesn't work. It kind of floats for a little bit and then shoots out and crashes. He goes, "It's said a few years development." Obvious joke and nod to the audience about how back then they promised us flying cars by now. Uh, but most of his other stuff seems good. He's there as a basic background, kind of like a Q character. Mainly there just to kind of wink at the audience, go, "Hey, I'm Tony's father," and maybe setting up something for the third film, or not the third film, but the Avengers film. At least giving Steve Rogers something that he can have with Tony Stark, where Tony was like, "You know my father? Tell me about him. He was a womanizer." Oh. Oh yeah, there was another line though. Before I get into any other, I was gonna say this with Hugo Weaving. After he finds the cosmic cube, he kind of goes, and Zafira looks in the sun for trinkets. It's I was the only one that laughed out loud at that. I don't think anyone else got the reference. He's referring to Raiders of the Lost Ark. I had like a little flash image where it turns out Indiana Jones is running around somewhere in the Marvel universe. But speaking of Hydra, what I was on before, they do show them as kind of being separate from the Nazis. I mean, they start off as the Nazi Deep Science Division thing, and at the very first scene, they're clearly wearing Nazi uniforms. It's modified a little bit, and later on, their uniforms go way different. And when the Nazis kind of show up, they go, "Kind of, Schmidt, you're not delivering on anything, any of your projects." He's kind of taken through the facility, and they're kind of looking like, "Oh, you got rid of the swastikas, and you put your little weird thing up, and these guys look completely different from regular German soldiers." And as they kind of say they're kind of shutting them down, he kind of kills them. But this is kind of early in the film, and later on, I'm kind of like, what happened to Nazis shutting him down? Did Schmidt maybe say they died in an accident? Because he kind of vaporized their bodies. Go, "Oh, they crashed on the way over." So is he still technically working for the Nazis, or is he clearly different? Because it would have been kind of cool, I think, if they kind of showed him more having to deal with the Nazis. Because he's in the film, in the plot, he's got factories producing stuff all over Nazi-occupied Europe. Where if you see a lot of stuff in the trailer with the action, most of that stuff, I thought they were spoiling a lot of the action scenes, is a montage that they have in part of the film where he gets his crew together and they decide to go out and raid all these Hydra bases, taking them out one by one. And one of the few times in a modern movie I've seen a montage. It was a cool montage, but that also shows the trailer didn't ruin a lot of stuff. But you kind of wonder, okay, he's got all these. The Nazis aren't shutting them down. I mean, they show at this point that the Hydra has just become completely loyal to Johann Schmidt, more so than Hitler. And there's a cult around him and all that stuff. And the Nazis that were there said they were shutting him down. Which is what's what confuses me is he still in with the Nazis? Like, did him killing those guys basically buy him time? Because it's kind of clear that this film takes place over the course of a couple months, if not a year. And minus the stuff in modern day. But I don't know. It would be kind of interesting to see if like SS agents showing up trying to kill him too, along with the Americans, and then having a three-way battle between SS units, the Hydra, and the Americans. This to kind of show the messed upness of the situation. It's a minor thing. I'm sure a lot of people didn't even think about it, but it would have been kind of cool to see more of, I guess, Nazi Germany and stuff, which is something I said in my trailer reaction stuff. They do though do at least homage to what I was really hoping for. It wasn't fully, but the scene where Captain America punches Hitler in the face. I was so hoping they were going to capture Captain America at some point. They were going to bring in, show Hitler their prize. He was going to get loose, punch him in the face, and start wreaking havoc on the Hydra base. Scurry out Hitler so he can shoot himself a year later. But they do at some point. Basically, after Captain America is created, and they can't create any more because of the attack. A senator winds up using him as a propaganda tool. And then part of his stage show is they have Hitler pop out and he kind of throws a fake punch and knocks him out. And there's a scene in there where they kind of another montage where they show him knocking him out constantly, going back and back, really harping on that scene. I do at least appreciate that he put it in there. They might have not been able to put him actually punching Hitler in the face, but they at least gave homage to the scene. And that was like my big hope for the movie, so it was partially succeeded. As for Chris Evans as Captain America, he does a very good job. I think he did a very good job establishing his motivations. The whole idea he's a Vika man, but yet he's tenacious. His kind of awkwardness with girls that's another arc that they put in there. It just, you kind of feel sorry for the guy, but at the same time you kind of respect him. He did a very good job with that. He did a very good job even after he becomes Captain America. He gets really disappointed when he has to be this propaganda tool, and after he becomes this at least popular over back home, he's still kind of disappointed. He really wants to actually help, and I think he did it. I think Chris Evans did an excellent job with this. Who else? Oh, they had Bucky. I probably should have actually read whether they're going to have Bucky in here or not. But the way they pulled him off is, one, they introduced Bucky as being a friend of Steve's, who's actually big and tough, and he helps him out getting out of a fight. He kind of beats up the bully and sends him on his way as skinny Steve's getting beaten up, and he's supportive. And later on, he winds up joining, I forget what the name of the crew is, but the team that Captain America puts together, who really don't get any characterization at all, by the way. They're just the guys that show up, and you kind of quickly know them basically as there's a British guy, the French guy, the black guy, and the Asian guy. That's it. I mean, I don't ever call them giving names, really. They're kind of just there, I think, as a wink and a nod to the fans, and because he has, in most of the scenes, soldiers with him, so they might as well make it the same couple guys. Although, Neil I always get his name wrong. Neil McDowell? You know him. He plays Dum Dum Dugan. He must have been having flashbacks to Band of Brothers. That's all I can say. In some of those scenes, they looked right out of the Ardennes episodes where he kind of went nuts. I almost feel like he was probably oh man, I'm back here again. They're gonna make me go crazy. Yeah, for example, he was playing Dum Dum Dugan, who I'm kind of familiar with, and I don't think they ever mentioned his name. If they did, it was so quick I didn't notice. Anybody else? Oh, Tommy Lee Jones. Tommy Lee Jones played Tommy Lee Jones. Yeah, he basically played the same character, but he always plays, but he played it well. He was sarcastic, and I didn't even get into that. The humor in this film is quite good. Both the Doctor, played by Stanley Tucci, it was hilarious. Tommy Lee Jones, he had some hilarious lines too. As I'm not gonna kiss you. That was funny. Toby Jones was in there. If you're not familiar with Toby Jones, he always plays those weird characters. I'm trying to think off the top of my head, what is something you probably would recognize him from. He's in a lot of weird movies, and I recognized him. I quickly checked on his IMDb here, see if I can spot something that most people would recognize him in, and I don't see anything that I want to. I mean, he was in The Mist. He was the weird guy in The Mist. It's probably the one film everyone's seen, but I'm familiar with the actor, and I appreciate seeing him in there. And of course, I think we avoided enough. The big started talking about the tie-in stuff. Of course, I had the Cosmic Q, which was seen at the very end of Thor. They, of course, the movie begins with them finding the giant wreckage and a couple of agents going in and checking out and seeing there's a frozen Captain America. Okay, and then it ends, and they actually do. They really do kind of set the story in World War II is kind of a movie in and of itself, and there just happens to be a random Avengers setup scene at the beginning and at the end that do kind of feel like they're a completely different movie. It's not too distracting though, but at the end he kind of wakes up, and you think at first is a World War II hospital, and then he recognizes that I don't know how they messed this up because the film's supposed to take place in '43, and they're playing a baseball game from 1941 that he actually attended. You figured Shield would have just picked. They would have known he went down on this date. Let's pick a game from the week after. Pick a game. It's because it's the only thing playing. You figure they would have got that down instead of just picking a random 1940s baseball game. It's because that was like the only thing people listened to back then. But he gets out. He escapes right into what turns out to be Shield's New York office. Runs out into the middle of Times Square because he picks up that it's fake. And at first, the way that the Shield agents are, they're pretty much wearing the same gear and uniforms as they were in Thor with the whole black. You can kind of think, oh, he's still in a. I think this is what they're going for. Obviously, everyone knew it was Shield agents, but that he was in a Hydra base, and you can't understand his thinking until he gets outside and he sees in the middle of New York. He's confused as hell. Samuel L. Jackson pops up and says, "You've been sleeping for 70 years." He's like, he honestly takes it very well. He's just like, I had a date, because at the very end, he sets up a date with the British chick, which everyone knew was going to happen by the end. I was actually expecting to see an aged version of her to show up at some point. I could talk about her character and all that stuff, but looking at my recording timer, it's 22 minutes. I've talked enough about this film. Go see it, enjoy it. There's a whole bunch of stuff I didn't talk about. I probably could have gone on for a good 40-minute review. I could have used my friend here, and for any of those who started watching this because of the Lord Cat question, for those of you who don't know, I posted a question on Lord Cat's how to do it. He gave me a suggestion for recording Skype conversations. I just don't have the 30 extra bucks right now when he's really tight at the moment. Yeah, I know I just spent money to go see a film, but I've budgeted that stuff. 30 bucks just to be able to record Skype conversations. I have some tech-savvy friends. I might have them, because they're much better at this stuff, set up Audacity. Maybe. We'll see. But in case anyone's wondering why, after getting the advice, I didn't do of recording with people. One, it's, as I said, 3 in the morning. I'm pretty sure the friend I went to go see this with is probably zonked out on the couch right now. Maybe if I get maybe if I do there's a couple Steam games that we both play. We might do reviews on those, but I have to get them to set up Audacity for me, because I heard Audacity is a pain to set up. Alright, well, that is it for now. I am about to post this real quick and go to sleep. See you guys next week for Cowboys and Aliens. And yes, I know I messed up on the last video saying Cowboys and Aliens came out this week. I got the dates mixed up. Next time, Cowboys and Aliens, for real. Bye.